All right, welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin some breaking news tonight. President Trump says a deal could be coming in a few days, saying Iran has agreed to no nuclear weapons. Iran, however, pushing back a little bit on that, saying no final decision has been made. We're going to have more on this in just a bit. Also, President Trump nominating U.S. Attorney for Southern District of New York, Carney, to succeed Tulsi Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence. Clayton, who served as Trump's SEC chairman in his first term, was chosen over acting Director Bill Pulte, whose appointment was angering somehow, for some reason, both Republicans and Democrats. I don't really care what the Democrats think. But Florida's Supreme Court has now paved the way for a new House map for the upcoming November midterm elections. Republicans hoping to pick up an additional 4 seats in the redrawn district. But first, crisis of culture. The race baiters have devalued racism to such an extent that no one cares anymore. Let's do this. Look, people are over this. The race card doesn't work anymore. Yet the family of the convicted murderer, Karmelo Anthony, ran to CBS to play victim.
My son didn't intend to hurt anyone. My son was defending himself. And that's what hurt so bad. Have mercy on my son. That's what I told the jury. I know they had their minds made up already, so.
So no faith in the justice system by her. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter what your opinion is because you weren't on the jury and your son was proven guilty in a court of law. If you didn't know the details of this case, though, listening to her interview, you would think it was her kid that was murdered. It's not just the parents, it's the whole family. Here's Karmelo's grandmother.
And we got here that a white person to hit a black boy and get away.
That's it. Yeah.
I'm pretty clear where he learned his behavior from. The guy raising all kinds of hell in the media wasn't even in the room for his son's sentencing, but has made sure to add to his profile that he's Karmelo Anthony's father. And the father of Austin Metcalf just went off on his.
You'll jump on the side of a murderer for skin color. Do you know how stupid that really makes you look? I'm going to support somebody blindly, even though they did wrong. You're going to support someone who does something against the law. You're encouraging and saying it's okay because he's a certain color.
I mean, it's why I'm covering this so much, because I refuse to let the narrative be sold as some sort of mischaracterization of justice based on race. The system worked exactly how it's supposed to work. The evidence convicted Karmelo Anthony, not some seditious conspiracy against black people. But now the jurors are getting dragged into this. A new trend is popping up where white people are getting harassed and even assaulted because they might look like someone on the jury, even if they weren't on the jury.
Hey, weren't you on jury selection?
No, he wasn't. Man. No, he wasn't. Seriously. He wasn't.
He was on jury selection.
No, he wasn't. That's right. I ain't been on the vet, dude. He's a vet. He's a vet. He ain't been on jury selection.
I ain't worried about that. You gonna die.
Yeah, this is thuggery. These people didn't ask for this. You're mandated to do jury duty as part of, it's a civic duty. And it's the responsibility of citizens, once they are chosen for that, to be fair and just based on evidence and the instructions of the judge. I mean, like, honestly, like, what should these people have done? Should they have just, I don't know, let the mob rule the situation, acquitted Anthony because of a bunch of people who refused? They did, like, these people who are doing this stuff, they didn't even try to see the evidence. The people causing the mayhem outside the courthouse that you see there wanted an innocent verdict because they believed this was some white man justice system versus the black community, which is not. It's just not. America's so tired of this. Think about that. For the race that allegedly has it so good, according to this mob, white people, is actually, in reality, the one that is constantly oppressed here in America today. Case in point. I mean, like, case after case after case is ruled in favor of everyone who is not black for being discriminated against, where black people have been elevated despite fewer qualifications over other races. Here, look at this one. 19 white firefighters in Connecticut, Rico versus DiStefano. Harvard discriminated against Asians on acceptance. New York Department of Education just had to settle a case a year ago because they had demoted white people and giving higher positions to less qualified black people to increase diversity based on skin color. The white people won millions because they were discriminating. The white people are the ones who have actual systemic racism being perpetuated against them every day. The black community has their own colleges, sometimes even exclusive black-only graduations. Civil rights leaders fought so hard to end segregation, and now some in the mob are fighting to resegregate themselves. The same community has their own scholarships and black-only business loans, and I'm not eligible as a white person. Really? Flip those around. See how people take it. The entire DEI program held almost every race down in order to advance people of color, as the NAACP has in their name. And America is so done with this. They're done with this racial divide. Everyone else in America wants you to be judged by the content of your character. Like I always say, black people kill other black people at a rate of almost 20 times higher than white people kill black people. Why don't we have that conversation? We don't. No, we're not going to have that conversation because we don't want to, because it doesn't fit the race baiters narrative. By the way, this is exactly why the Southern Poverty Law Center had to pay to create the appearance of white supremacy and have rallies and instances and all this stuff, because there wasn't enough of it in America. Because if there was, they wouldn't have needed to manufacture it. The Klan would have bought their own hoods and their own cross-burning material, but they didn't because it doesn't occur enough, so the SPLC had to go and do it for them and then claim it's a problem. And I know I'm going to piss all kinds of people off with this, but this has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. Best articulated by Ben Shapiro like 10 or 15 years ago, by the way.
How can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality?
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture that doesn't, you know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me. Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly higher than whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison, is so high. Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if it is, please explain to me how that happened.
Anyone care to? The stark reality of this is the fact that the dam of people being held back from saying it is cracking. Society previously made it basically socially unacceptable to call out the simple facts of cultural differences based on race since, I don't know, LBJ, under the banner of, well, we'll just call you racist, and then it was like a scarlet letter for anybody. That hurt the black community more than anything else because it told predominantly young black men that it's fine to commit crime because anybody who calls you out is therefore racist, and they can't do that. Those people then grew up to become fathers that ran out on their kids, just like Ben pointed out. The very people who perpetuated this black victimhood in America did more damage to the people they were allegedly calling racists, who by and large are not. For example, your humble correspondent. I was basically proverbially chased out of D.C. with pitchforks like I was a witch or something for pointing out statistical and cultural problems just like Ben did. Not because I hated anyone, but because I wanted to have the conversation. Because you can't fix anything without admitting there's an issue and discussing it. This case is like the perfect example. Look at how the money was spent for Karmelo Anthony. Over half, it's like $630,000 raised for that family. And they went around and got some low-level public defender turned private defense counsel. Instead of hiring a better attorney, they used the money for moving expenses to a new house in a gated community and a car and security. You're not J-Lo. The way this money was spent was foolish, culturally foolish. But you can't say that without being shouted down by the same people who don't want to look at the evidence. The people who want to constantly blame the system and will call you a racist for pointing out the consequences of their own actions. But a man whose son, Austin Metcalf, was taken by that culture, Karmelo Anthony took enough from this man to speak plainly.
He was laughing. Drew Anthony, you're a and a coward, and you raised one. Kayla, you drunk. What'd you do to that boy to make him stab somebody? My God, what kind of mother are you? Hey, Kevin Hayes, you liar. Day after it happened, how many lies did you sit and type up on your keyboard, you big keyboard warrior? You a big tough man. You still live in Baton Rouge? Remember you said you'd come to Frisco, buddy? You were supposed to find me. I told you we could sit down and talk. That's all you do. Talk, Mr. Squeaky Clean. You're the only one in your family without a damn record. I guess that's something to brag about in your culture. You people hang your hat on the dumbest I've ever seen.
He went on for 2 hours. I mean, can you blame the guy? He's angry. Offensive? I mean, to some. Wrong? Not entirely. Racist? No, he didn't even mention color one time there. He'll be on right after this on Schmidt, actually, if you want to tune in to hear more from him. Folks, race relations aren't bad because the system. They got this bad because one group was criticized for calling out legitimate problems in another group, who were then called racist for that. So they stopped calling it out, which emboldened an entire generation and culture to behave like Carmelo Anthony. Call me whatever you want. Doesn't make me wrong. It does make me someone who actually wants to fix the problem. That's why I'm saying this. Newsmax legal analyst Jay Town, an attorney at Judicial Watch and author of the fantastic book Defiant, Christina Bobb. All right, Jay, it just seems like the system worked and nobody on that side, like I get it, a mother grieving that her son is going to jail for 35 years. Okay, but it doesn't mean they got it wrong.
No, the jury did not get it wrong. And anybody with a functioning limbic system who just knew a little bit about this case understood that whether it's a shoving match or a fist fight, you don't bring a knife to either. And this kid brought a knife into a tent that he shouldn't have been in and dared people to push him out of it and stab someone in the heart and killed him. 17-year-old kid. That father has every right, Austin Metcalf's father has every right to say everything that he is saying right now. Useful idiots bought a convicted murderer's family a house and a car. Mm-hmm. Now think about that. Think about where we've gotten to in this nation, where that individual on your screen right there, his family is now enriched because he killed someone. That's disgusting to me.
Yeah, but Christina, the other thing is they make this case, and we've talked about it, it was an all-white jury. I mean, we should get to a place in our system where it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. That's what the complaints are, that everything's racist. But it's gone backwards to the point where they want resegregation in order to have fairness, which is not how America was founded.
It's not how America was founded, and it's not how we should be working to progress either. But it's also why the education system has been pushing white privilege and trying to convince white people that they should feel bad for being white or feel bad for having nice things or a nice quality of life to the extent that they do. Not every white person does, but they paint it out there to try to demonize white people so that they go, oh, you're right. You know, this is bad. We need to promote this, because there was nothing racist about the way this trial went forward. There was nothing racist about the way that the jury came to this decision. I mean, he stabbed a boy through the heart and killed him. That has nothing to do with race. So, and I think Jay's point is well taken, that the more they get for this, the more they feel entitled, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I want to, since I got you two legal people here, I want to get over to what happened with the FISA court. I know we had a huge debate on this. Jay, FISA was just denied an extension, and I think it's very important to note that there's a lot of people that are happy about this, and there are a lot of people that are upset about it on both sides of the aisle. It's not a partisan issue.
Yeah, if they don't do something, and you said in your read-in that Jay Carney was announced as DNI, so maybe that moves the needle a little bit for the administration on the reauthorization of 702.
Sorry.
Okay,
I
I
said
said Carney, didn't I?
Yeah,
you're right. But the fact that 702 is a really bad time to let 702 lapse on Friday. We have the 250th anniversary of this country, and I understand how Christina and you feel about 702 before you beat the heck out of me, right? But if you're going to have 702, now is a really good time to have it. With FIFA World Cup, with the College World Series, with all that's going on in this country around July 4th. It's a really bad time to not have it. And so it is concerning to people like me who are reasonable and understand why 702 is necessary.
Well, Christina, I got about a minute left here for you. I think I'm reasonable enough to think that maybe we shouldn't be spying on people that are American citizens.
Yeah, I hate everything about FISA, and it needs to go. I don't personally am not concerned about someone traveling here for the World Cup or, some hacker in Russia. I'm concerned about the FBI. I'm concerned about the Department of Justice. I'm concerned about the American government that has gone way too far and overstepped its bounds to the point that they're surveilling American Congress members and senators. They've abused it to the point beyond recognition, beyond its usefulness, and it needs to go. Yeah.
I will note, though, that the referee, the Somali referee that was supposed to come in for the World Cup, he was on the terrorist watch list for being affiliated with Al-Shabaab, and they caught him without the FISA court. So got to leave it there. Jay, Christina, have a great weekend.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, guys.
All right, coming up, the liberal media loves to write garbage clickbait headlines and just randomly run it, especially with Trump's ballroom renovation project. Turns out there's actually no merit to most of these headlines. The left, I know, crazy. I'm going to be settling the score on this in a little bit. But first, Europeans are done with mass migration after an African migrant that we told you about yesterday tried to behead a man in the streets of Northern Ireland. But what will their government actually do to help them? We're going to break that down from Belfast live in Studio Z tonight. See you in a second.
Donald Trump's second presidency is changing America. Now you need to watch Rob Schmitt tonight on President Trump's next big move. Then tune into Rob Finnerty taking on Trump's critics. President Trump says he watches Newsmax. You should too. Download our Newsmax app to watch us anytime, anywhere. Millions are making the switch to Newsmax. Be one.
The road to greatness is long, but greatness isn't just forged from within. It has to be proven on the greatest stage of all.
The hype is real! This is the moment we have all been waiting for.
The pain is gone. It's gone. I was wheeled in. I couldn't even move 5 feet without the wheelchair. I was in awful pain.
Are you able to get onto the bed?
I doubt it.
No?
We went through the whole intake interview, did the MRI, x-rays. I was awake through the surgery, came back to recovery. I was there for 10 minutes, and I got up and I walked.
Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
Nobody wants to put a new roof over their head. It's too expensive. And if they can extend the life of that roof and get 5 more years or 10 more years, it's a no-brainer.
What RoofMax does is it helps people in that they don't have to spend that $15,000, $20,000 on a new roof. They can spend pennies on the dollar.
The RoofMax product was a small percentage of cost of replacing a roof.
Get your roof treated now, but pay later, with no payments for a full year.
Last night, we told you about the reality of the far left big globalist policies and an African migrant trying to behead a citizen in Belfast, Northern Ireland, Monday, which, by the way, falls under the UK governance. Europe is finally waking up to this fact that migrants are ruining their culture and stealing it and imposing their own and importing the third world, literally burning down their establishment over this, the people are. The UK Defence Minister, John Healey, literally resigned this morning over Keir Starmer's failure to commit the resources the nation needs to defend this country at a time of rising threats. Well, how do you have those threats rise, pal? Even their own government's sick of it. These people in power are doing absolutely nothing to help their constituents. They're being assaulted and raped and murdered, and migrants they've imported from the third world countries are just doing whatever they want. But of course, the Northern Ireland minister came out blaming, oh, it's far-right extremists for the protests after watching their neighbor get beheaded.
Monday night was horrific, and so many people saw that image. I wish people didn't see that image, but unfortunately many people did. But it was absolutely horrific. But there are bad actors that are jumping on this and actually using it to stir up hate and tension. And people who don't even know who we are. We're not a racist people here. People who don't even know where we are on a map. But yet now we see the likes of the Elon Musks of this world, where we see the Tommy Robinsons of this world, the keyboard warriors who are sitting very comfy in their homes.
Saying, I wish no one had seen the video. Why? So you could continue letting these migrants in with no complaint. Also, Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson are keyboard warriors? Yeah. Okay, lady. You're the type of person, like I said yesterday, that this mob, eventually, when they've had enough, is going to try you in the public square. And then the mayor of London, London Stan, comes out with a statement saying, we must take on the hateful forces that seek to divide us. The only thing that's getting divided is that dude's head from his body. How about you take on the criminals? At least in the UK has people like Nigel Farage who aren't afraid to speak about the truth.
There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that this man should not have been in this country. It is just as simple as that. He entered the country illegally, and is it any surprise that people in Belfast and elsewhere are scared? But the vast majority of those people who were out on the streets in Belfast last night were not far right, were not extremists, just really scared about what's going on in their communities and about the lack of government action. There's none.
Yeah, he's right. There's none. It's just like what we saw with the minister stepping down. What is Europe doing to save their native citizens from these migrants before it's too late? GB News host Bev Turner. Bev, again, we had you on last night, and I think it's important to know how close your area, England and Northern Ireland, is to a boiling point.
It really is, actually. And I think what you've just summed up there is this phenomenal disconnect between the elites in power who never actually have to see their high street change. They will have a country house and they will get driven around in chauffeurs, and they haven't seen the high street, which had maybe an English cafe serving breakfast, which is now a shisha bar. And the writing, we have whole streets in the UK now that have shops on them where the writing is in Arabic. And so as British people, we have been quietly wanting to ask the question about that changing culture. We haven't been allowed to. And we get to the place where we're seeing this footage like this. As you said, Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, he's just come back from Mecca. He went on a pilgrimage, as all Muslims are supposed to do at least once in their life. And he said when he was there, he realized that everyone was equal in the eyes of God. And that may be true, but he's not God. And actually, neither are our politicians. And so they have to decide, are we genuinely equal to people coming from Sudan, British-born people? Are we equal with people who've come from war-torn countries? No, we aren't. And that is very sad for those people, but we aren't.
I mean, people, here in America, people are just completely fed up with these migrants coming here illegally. A new Harris poll shows that 56% of U.S. citizens supports deporting all, not the worst of the worst, not all who are here illegally. 44% are the only ones opposing this. And when you break it down by political party, 37% of Democrats, 77% of the GOP, and 53% of independents want all illegals the hell out of here.
Well, I think the feeling is very similar in the UK. We just haven't been allowed to say it. We have such a restricted media.
I got you, Bev.
And that is a big part of it, And if it wasn't for GB News, and thank God for social media, because as you've said, now all of the politicians are coming out and saying this isn't about immigration. This is the fault of social media. Well, thank God for social media, because when you said, Carl, what are they going to do to protect British people? They're going to clamp down on social media. That is their plan. They can call a time of crisis, which would mean that material would be suppressed and it would be taken down. They're a bit vague on how they can make it work, but they don't want us to see the truth. But the backlash, the people are enraged now, and it's starting in Belfast, and it probably will come across to the mainland of the UK as well. We're seeing groups of people. We saw the Unite the Kingdom rally just a few weeks ago in the UK. The media didn't cover it. They said, oh, there were like a few thousand people turned up in London. There were way over probably a couple of 100,000 people in the UK, if not more. There could have been 500,000, maybe, people who are taking to the streets. They're getting empowered, they're getting emboldened, and they genuinely want to have their voices heard. Angry people need two things normally. They either need space or they need to be heard. Well, the voices of the British people are rising up.
They're fed up with it, no doubt there. Bev, we appreciate it. We'll have you back on when there's some more updates here.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, new strikes hammering Iran overnight, but after threatening an even bigger barrage, President Trump suddenly calls off the attacks tonight. Maybe potential deal. Stock market soars after it, too. We're going to go over that next.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Does it ever feel like society is going up in flames, yet people don't have the strength to care? There's a hidden reason for that, and it may surprise you. Testosterone levels in American men are at an historic low, and it's testosterone that gives men the energy to be men. Support your own natural testosterone production with Chalk. Go to chalk.com/TV1 for your $17.76 discount. Chalk's all-American customer service team is standing by.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
People always ask me how I stay ready, how I lock in when it actually counts. They think I must be on something. It's pure, it's potent, it's all me. Something that never lets me down. Armra, I'm on it.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. So Nobella changed that.
Introducing the new Lift EX. For just one visit, total body transformation.
I decided to give Sonobello a try. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is our breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative that sculpts, tightens, and lifts your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside. And Lift EX is exclusively available at Sonobello. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever. Call to book your free consultation today.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Use daily dermatologist-recommended Dermend and reduce the appearance of bruises. Get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle.
We just made a great settlement of the war with Iran, and we're going to be subject to finalization of documents. We should get done over the next few days. probably have a signing maybe in Europe, and it's a great thing.
Okay, President Trump calling off another round of heavy strikes in Iran, which are scheduled to happen tonight, after saying progress has been made towards a deal because we turned a bunch of other stuff into dust. The shocking reversal, though, follows 2 nights of the most probably intense operations we've seen since the last one, just hours after the president threatened to crush them even harder, which probably meant infrastructure. Trump posting on Truth Social, in part, based on the fact that discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran have been brought to the highest levels of Iranian leadership and approved, I, as President of the United States of America, canceled the scheduled strikes and bombings against Iran later this evening. Now, we've been here before, but is it different? I hope so. Former CIA Covert Operations Officer Mike Baker and former Navy Pentagon Chief Staff Brent Sadler. All right, so, Mike, we've been here before.
Yeah.
Do you think they mean it, or are we negotiating with somebody who's even in charge?
Look, they've never negotiated in good faith. All right, so color me cynical on all of this. And we haven't gotten any word yet from the regime that says they've agreed or that they're, in agreement with the comments coming from President Trump in the White House. And as you pointed out, we've gone through this rinse-repeat cycle several times. So I'm with you. I hope that's the case, with one caveat. I hope that this agreement is going to be a memorandum of understanding, basically. So I think what we're going to end up seeing is an MOU signed that says we're going to talk, right? And there'll be some concessions. And I think that's the part that we need to keep our eye on. What concessions are being given to the Iranian regime to get this MOU signed, which essentially kicks the can down. I know I'm sounding cynical, kicks the can down the road for the nuclear discussions.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm standing right now.
Brent, but why not just say, like, hey, we're just going to keep tuning you guys up. We're going to keep turning your cities into the Stone Age until you put the dust on a platter and hand it to us.
I think there's a great point to be made on that. The president, I think, is taken the course he's taken because the attacks were designed to get a breakthrough on the deal. I'm skeptical, as Mike is, that the Iranians will honor their side of the deal. They're already starting to get stuff coming out of Iran, at least the rhetoric, that they're already trying to characterize it and already setting up a narrative that could, have second guessing, and we could be back in again. The key thing here is letting that play out in the next day, maybe 2 at most into the weekend, but keeping the military hammer ready to swing. So whatever strikes were planned for tonight, as soon as the Iranians look like they're playing games, that hammer needs to fall, and probably 120% what was planned tonight needs to fall very quickly and pretty resoundingly, and most of it on the IRGC's head.
Yeah, Mike, I got about 45 seconds here. The issue, though, is we've been here, and we were told that they didn't have any military. Then they launched a drone that hit our helicopter, that took down a helicopter, and we hit more military targets. Like, at some point, we have to get an update that's real. Do we even know what's going on, what's left of their military?
Yeah, look, the credible assessments don't line up with the narrative from the White House. And I understand why the White House says things the way they do. And look, of course, President Trump always speaks in sort of this rhetoric that, and part of that keeps the adversaries on their back foot. But the reality is they have retained, possibly up to 2/3 of their missile stockpiles and their launchers. They've certainly retained sufficient capabilities along the Strait of Hormuz. So to say that they have no defenses is an exaggeration, just like it is to say that we have control of the Strait. If we had control of the Strait right now, we wouldn't be doing this segment.
Right. Well, that's a fair point. So anyway, Brent, Mike, we got to leave it right there. Sure. Appreciate both of you. All right, coming up, the left wing's media obsession with Trump's health is in full effect, but Biden's health was always perfect, according to the same people. Nothing wrong here. Culture Clash coming up.
He could tell me everything about my life, so he was looking for me for a long time.
Children are being manipulated and blackmailed online. The results can be deadly. Human trafficking is happening right here in America. Watch Stolen Lives, America's human trafficking crisis.
Pop up the volume. Go ahead. Crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing, for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
In America, we believe in hard work, family, and taking care of our own. That's why SafeStep walk-in tubs are proudly designed, built, and assembled in the USA, in the heart of Tennessee, by more than 300 hardworking Americans.
My name is Michelle Johnson. Lamination is where we put the fiberglass, resin, and gel coat on the actual product.
Skilled craft professionals, building every tub with precision, care, and pride. With a low step-in design, built-in safety features, and soothing therapeutic jets, SafeStep helps you stay comfortable, confident, and in control.
My name's Angela Peters. We make sure everything is as perfect as it can be.
When you choose SafeStep, you're not just investing in your home, you're supporting American families and American jobs. Call now for your free in-home consultation and ask about our special offer. SafeStep walk-in tubs, made in Tennessee, made for you.
The wait is finally over. Christian Pulisic and the U.S. kick off their World Cup dream on a huge night in L.A. Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
My mom had her identity stolen, and seeing just how stressful that was changed everything for me. Now, I use the Experian app to check my FICO score and even get real-time alerts. It helps me feel in control. Get started with the Experian app.
We can all agree, steak is for dads. Grill dads, charcoal dads, tongue-snapping dads, united by their love of steak. His perfect gift is waiting, plus 8 free burgers at omahasteaks.com.
It's me, Ricky. You grew up with me. I am using Fatty 15 to get me to feel and look the best I've ever felt at my age. The C15 nutrient has been known to strengthen our cells and slow the aging process at a cellular level. I urge you to try Fatty 15.
I read Profit First, loved the book. I switched to Relay. It's so easy and seamless, and you don't have to worry about anything getting lost.
Today, kids are navigating an always-on world, consuming more information than ever before. Strengthening youth mental health starts with ensuring kids have strong digital and media literacy skills. Teaching students how to think critically about the content they see online helps them navigate digital spaces thoughtfully and intentionally. We need to teach media literacy in every school. Youth mental health is complex, but media literacy empowers educators and parents to keep kids safe.
The legacy media is singing the same old tune, attempting to call out Trump's health. The Washington Post putting out a piece titled, "Trump sees 22 medical specialists appearing to set the new bar for presidents." Okay, I feel like that's kind of a good thing. Like, I want my president to be seen by 10, 20, 30 specialists if needed. But also, where was all this during Biden when he was president? Because the Washington Post wrote back then, Biden's doctor declares him fit and able to carry out his duties, and we're all supposed to just, like, take their word for it. But he was so fit that he wandered off into the jungle and got lost. But don't worry, the auto pen knew how to run the White House. Host of Uncovered on LFA TV, Shawn Farash, and Newsmax contributor Kay Smythe. Kay, I mean, we'll just take the Washington Post word under Democrats, right?
Oh yeah, no, that propaganda machine, we'll totally trust them on all of the things that they say, especially after the last 4 years, right? Like, we can totally trust them after everything that happened after the last 4 years. Said absolutely no one ever. Listen, I think it's fantastic that Trump sees that many specialists. You look at the healthiest people, like all these health influencers, that's all they do, is they see all these doctors who tell them that they're doing great. And I think it's great. And also, when you go back, I think George W. Bush saw something like 12 specialists. So the number has like steadily increased with the sort of pace that, the medical industry creates specialists at this point.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty cool. And I'm glad to hear it because, like you, I want a healthy president. It's that simple.
Yeah, exactly. And he's going to be 80 this weekend. So, like, I'd like to have him see the specialist. They keep giving him a clean bill of health, unlike Biden. All right, a broke school district, Shawn, shelled out nearly $400,000 to extreme ethnic studies, as they called it. These were consultants obsessed with defunding the police and tearing down capitalism rather than fixing the students. And, I mean, they're appallingly bad reading and math scores. Harmeet Dillon called it out, saying, hey, look, check it out. Your tax dollars at work.
You know, this is the biggest problem that I have with this wasteful government spending is you never, ever, ever find out what your return on investment is, right? So in schools, you would think if you spend a lot of money, right, in schools, or you're spending it on ethics consultants or whatever it might be, you would see some sort of report at the end of the year saying, here's what we spent it on, here's who we spent it on, and here's the results that it produced. You know, in the government, you get some of these cases too, where they're like, yeah, we spent like $300,000 to walk lizards drunk on a treadmill. We spent $120,000 to study. You know, we spent $120,000 to study male pattern baldness in outer space. When is that ever going to be a thing? You know, but in these schools, so you can measure the effectiveness of your investment based off of how the students are performing, and the students keep getting worse, and the schools keep getting more money, and it doesn't make any sense. If it's not working, do something else. Spend it on something different. Enough of the ethics consultants that are clearly not producing better results for the kids. It makes no sense.
Yeah, no, none. And I mean, but in New Jersey, you could actually measure the success or failures of their budget based on Chris Christie, but I'm just saying. Okay, the Democrats defending a guy with a literal Nazi tattoo never cease to amaze me. The former chief of staff to Joe Biden, Ron Klain, is like, he's hopping on this Platner train, defending him, saying, oh, this is just a partisan attack. The tattoo is a skull and crossbones to remember his fallen comrades from his service in Afghanistan, while he was also crapping on a service member, Teddy Daniels, who got shot in Afghanistan. Spelling comrades wrong, by the way, but was even worse. This guy was a former Holocaust Memorial Museum board member, and he's giving Graham Platner the pass, Kay?
At this point, guys, you can't make this stuff up. Like, if you had told any of us, let's be honest, if you told any of us 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that the Democrats were going to put up a literal dude with a Nazi tattoo and then have someone like Ron Klain, who is just like such a nobody, like, bless his heart, I hear his name like maybe once a year, and it takes me like 10 minutes to be like, oh yeah, he did have a job at one point, right? Like, he was relevant at one point. Maybe, is he more? If you had told us like all those years ago that like this would be happening, none of us would have bet on it. Not a single one of us, because it is so outlandish. It feels like we are living in the show Veep, but all of the writers have just taken like all of the hallucinogenic drugs, and the words just don't make sense anymore.
Shawn,
that is what the Democrats have done.
I want to give Shawn the last word on this, because I like my job, but I know he's going to test it.
You brought up Chris Christie, and that's a pretty big thing to bring up if you think about it. But I want to talk about Graham Platner, because do you know how many times I've been called a Nazi? Right? A lot of times, okay? Do you know how many Nazi tattoos I have? Zero. I don't have a single Nazi tattoo. I don't have a tattoo anywhere. And I get called a Nazi because I wear a red hat. This guy's got a Nazi tattoo. Bad. But everything is okay. And Chris Christie is huge. And that's all I can say. Okay? That's fine.
Shawn Kay, thank you very much. All right. Coming up, the legacy media lying? No, never would do that. They're now suggesting that Trump is giving government contracts to his buddies for donating to the White House ballroom. It's all a lie. Next.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
250 years ago, a nation was forged by grit, by courage, by freedom. Today, we raise a glass to that same spirit. 4547 Straight Bourbon Whiskey, the 250th Anniversary Edition. Bold, independent, unmistakably American. Toast to independence this year. Built by patriots, for patriots. Order yours today.
Millions of people trust Prevagen for their brain.
I've been taking Prevagen for 4 years now. It's a life changer.
I've been taking Prevagen for 8 years now, and it's still helping me tremendously.
Well, I've been taking Prevagen, I know, for over 10 years.
Why do more people choose Prevagen year after year more than any other brain supplement?
Because it just works.
Prevagen is the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years. Prevagen, for your brain.
Before you agree, you should understand how dangerous this is.
What's the mission?
You're hunting a predator. Miss the kill shot. It comes for you.
I wouldn't miss it for anything. Whatever it takes. Understand?
Spring. Things out here have gotten a little too comfortable. It's time to run it. Run it until the grass becomes a lawn. Until the hedges duck for cover. Then run it again. Right now, save $30 on select trimmers. Steel.
If you've got nothing to report, I guess just make stuff up and seem like Trump is doing something nefarious. That's literally how like 90% of the media networks survive today. They write garbage clickbait like this. Ballroom billions. Over half of corporate ballroom donors, 14 out of 27, have received new or increased government contracts over the last 6 months, totaling over $50 billion. Okay. Sounds salacious that Trump is like giving government contracts to his buddies for like donating to the White House ballroom project. Except that's not exactly accurate. I know, shocking, right? But let's look at some of those donors to the White House ballroom. Lockheed Martin. Yes, they are just new to the government contracting business because their donation to the White House ballroom. Idiotic. In fact, Lockheed Martin has been a direct line of defense contracts since World War I, before Trump was even born. In fact, the contracts they have received since the ballroom amount to a literal rounding error in their history in government contracts. Before Lockheed Martin even knew anything about the White House ballroom, quick Grok search right here, accumulated information and found Lockheed has likely received, I don't know, like over $1 trillion since their merger in 1995 under both Republicans and Democrats. No ballroom there. Lockheed received $313 billion from 2020 to 24 with the Pentagon alone. Who was president? Oh, that's right. Not Trump. No ballroom. It was Biden. They do, however, basically own Congress, as we told you the other night, because they commit tens of millions of dollars a year between political donations and their lobbying. So that's one of the ballroom donors the left is trying to paint in some nefarious quid pro quo. Nice job, guys. Let's look at some of the other donors that are also being cast in such a light. Booz Allen Hamilton, huge government contractor for years, $4.2 billion in new contracts or increased contracts in the last 6 months. But that actually pales in comparison to the almost $100 billion the firm has received in government contracts since 2001. I'm not great at math, Sam, but is 2001 before 2026? Yes, I think it is, actually, before the ballroom. Let's do Palantir. Next on that list with just over $1 billion in new and increased contracts, a company that has raked in stacks of billions, including $1 billion in Biden's last 2 years. Again, no ballroom then, but they got government contracts. Next up, Parsons, a company receiving $447 million in new and increased contracts. This company actually received, oh, weird, 22% less in government contracts in Q4 of Trump's first year from Q4 of Biden's last year. Great math on that one, journalists. Anyway, it's good for measure to round out the top 5. Microsoft, yes, that's that little garage-based startup. You may have heard of them. $318 million in new or increased contracts after donating to the ballroom, but also received $220 million in defense contracts in 2022, a defense contract for more than $172 million a year before that, a defense contract for nearly $120 million in Biden's last year, another one for $104 million in 2022, even an agricultural contract worth nearly $59 million in Biden's last year also. So all these companies are already getting heavy contracts from the government. Yes, they got more or continued contracts after donating, but the dollar amount of their contracts has been pretty consistent with everything else they're doing. I almost forgot they're being contracted for a product. Lockheed is being used to bomb the hell out of Iran right now, and I'd say it's working pretty well. Might be what they call a good investment. I know it's shocking that the liberal media would sensationalize a headline to try to hurt Trump, but here we are. That donation is just the way the game is played. They get access to the president or any other political donation. They get access to the candidate or the president, whatever. The bigger question I have, that is the same question that the authors should be asking of these liberal hack networks, is why do companies that exist primarily on government contracts have that much money to give them? Keep in mind, all that money comes from the confiscation of wealth from people who actually generate something. I'm not saying that those companies didn't create some value in some way. Some don't, but some do. But companies relying on government contracts should not have that much money to donate because their margin should be smaller because it's our money. But the government's not frugal, so they just hand out money left and right because it's not theirs. The average American household contributes only $20,000 a year in income taxes. Do you know how many people had to contribute to give these defense contractors a $1.7 trillion F-35 contract? That's a lot. Or how much money the government had to borrow from our children's future to print to give them, which, by the way, inflated our money to make our dollar worth less, that we're still being taxed at the same rate. These are the questions that legitimate publications should be asking, but instead, you get sensationalized headlines to try to make Trump look like a bad guy. Folks, I'm telling you, you do not hate the media enough. Before we go, it's that time of the week again. Comments for Carl coming up next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
My friends, I come to you today on behalf of the Jewish people in Ukraine whose lives have been completely destroyed. Family and loved ones brutally killed. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is inside of Ukraine, providing emergency food and supplies to tens of thousands of people.
I am shocked how many elderly people came here. They're afraid, and they realize now that there are more people than boxes.
For just $25, you can help rush an emergency food box to the elderly Jews in Ukraine. Many of them are hungry, frightened, and alone. Today, there's a special opportunity to double your gift's impact. Call now, and your gift's impact will be doubled.
The people of Ukraine are caught in the crosshairs of war. Many of these precious people are Holocaust survivors, elderly Jews who are sick and dying. They have no food, and we must reach them now before it's too late.
The world is in a war again. I am alone. I'm afraid of the bombs. I'm scared. I am old. There is no food.
Just $25 helps rush emergency food to elderly Jews in Ukraine who are in urgent need today. Please call, scan, or go online right now.
I will not starve. Thank you, good people.
We can be the hope to the Jewish people who are suffering in Ukraine. Your help is desperately needed now.
Thanks to generous fellowship partners. Call now and your gift's impact will be doubled.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been a physician for 4 decades. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time, and Fatty 15 is one product that actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. A brilliant veterinarian realized that dolphins get disease much like humans. She looked at what predisposed to those problems, isolated the molecule, gave it to the animals, they didn't get the problem. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. Cell health equals physical health. That's why I take Fatty 15.
Stop, check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. This frame is an 8-base wrap, so it's going to sit close to your face, give you wide peripheral vision, stay on tight, but it also has a squared off lens for a versatile everyday look. And then you have comfort fit adjustable rubber nose pads for secure fit as well. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at shadyrays.com.
Does it ever feel like society is going up in flames, yet people don't have the strength to care? There's a hidden reason for that, and it may surprise you. Testosterone levels in American men are at an historic low, and it's testosterone that gives men the energy to be men. Support your own natural testosterone production with Chalk. Go to chalk.com/TV1 for your $17.76 discount. Chalk's All-American customer service team is standing by.
All right, folks, Thursday, back with another comments for Carl. Let's get to it. Okay, so I tweeted out a congrats to Maine Democrats. Basically, great job for electing Platner with like 72% of the vote. And on cue, this guy Lurk responded, who has an AI butt superimposed on Trump's face as a profile picture, said, "You support the pedo-protecting rapist president, though." Really? He did respond to a quote from Graham Platner about raping people. Also important to note that the Dems never made an effort to release the Epstein files until Trump pushed for it. But hey, life is short. Spend it with people arguing on the internet. Anyway, I tweeted out another one about how Trump fixed the leaks in the reflecting pool on the mall. And this guy took some issue with it. He said, "That's false. They did not fix the leaks. Carl Higbie is lying again. Ever notice right-wing media either lies, is incompetent, or fully dug in on propaganda?" And then he screenshotted a Google AI search that talked about the plumbing that was not part of this contract, just the pool, which was reportedly leaking up to 16 million gallons a year. But what do you expect when his sources are literally right there? Wikipedia was the thing he sourced right there. I would refer you to the New York Times, actually, friend, which highlights the contract. The Virginia firm, Atlantic Industrial Coatings, the company is supposed to, quote, reseal the pool's joints and waterproofing of the slabs. And judging by the looks of the reno, it looks pretty sealed to me. And when has Trump ever let a contractor swindle him? Okay, I want to do one more here. Saw this one about Gavin Newsom saying that California made more jobs than Florida. Funky synapse, he said to me, "Carl, I'll be in LA soon on a trip. Could you recommend the best street to poop on?" He said, "I want the full LA experience." Yes, it's actually on the corner of Hobo and Bankrupt. You just go past Fentanyl Lane, and just up on your left, they took a beautiful coastline and turned it into trash. You can poop right there, Rob.
Oh, God. Carl, I don't know what to say to that. I don't know. I'm going to just let that stand on its own. Carl, good to see you.
Word, man.
All right, brother.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.